Crystal Tower information, Whiskey 2153 Zulu, wind 060 at 5.
076 Mike Juliet, this is departure radar contact.
Hazardous weather information from Minnesota available on flight service frequency.
You've dialed in the Flying Midwest podcast, connecting aviators from across America's heartland, sharing news, information, and events from around the region.
Calling Nancy 53 on Overtime, Roger, turn left heading 070, runway 9er, clear for takeoff.
Sit back, relax, and join our crew for some hangar talk as we discuss a wide variety of regional aviation topics.
Archer 71143, flying flag, runway 280 left, quick takeoff, left hand southbound.
And now, from our home at the Anoka County Blaine Airport, our checklist is complete, and we're ready for departure for another episode of the Flying Midwest podcast.
Contact departure, every flight.
Well, welcome everybody to the Flying Midwest podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Maddie. I'm here with Jim.
Hey.
Hi, Jim, and the Badger Pilot.
Hello.
Hi, Badger.
So, Maddie, I hear you might have some news to share with us.
So,
This is kind of a big deal.
Today I passed my airline transport pilot multi-engine written test.
Awesome.
I
You
got
didn't
an
just
idea.
pass it, though.
So
I was going to say, you didn't just pass it, you dominated it.
I actually texted an examiner that I've been chatting with. He's the one I went ballooning with, and he just said, "You definitely overstudied." I'm like, better over than under, Tony. I was determined to get no less than 85%, so I did succeed in that goal.
Good. That's awesome.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's a lot of stress and a lot of time finally resulted in something.
So I have an announcement, too. It's not nearly as exciting as Maddie's, but I passed my commercial written last week as well.
Good for you, man.
Very small step. I didn't quite score a 98, but...
That's okay. You don't have to do the most. I overdo it. So
Right.
got a fine score.
So I stressed myself out for 0 days straight. I had not studied for almost a year, and I took 2 practice tests cold just to see how it would go.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I was content with the results, said full send, let's do it, and I scored an 87. So that is
Awesome.
that is not me tooting my own horn. That's really me just saying I probably should have applied myself more and scored higher.
I'm pretty sure that's what I got on my commercial written, just studying. I think that's what I got.
So a small step, but in the right direction.
Yes, sir, it is.
Unfortunately, because I was a variety of factors, but mostly because I was studying for this written test, I was not able to join an extravaganza, a real life extravaganza that you guys had. You want to talk a little bit about the flying?
Is that what we're calling it?
I don't.
Yeah.
I can't talk. I think extravaganza is what Ed called it. So that's what I mean.
Probably.
No, it was a really good time. I want to just start by saying thank you to Rich Wellner and to Badger for putting this thing together. It was a really fun event. There was probably, what do you say, 20 people total over the course of the weekend and 12 aircraft? Is that what we came up with?
Yeah, 12 or 13 aircraft, about 20 people. Each night we had probably about 10 people camping overnight. And just a really cool opportunity to meet some faces that are familiar to us and then meet some new people as well. And you said thank you to Rich and to me. I really didn't do a whole lot. Rich gets all the credit with this. He put everything together, really. First of all, found a beautiful airport. The Lone Rock Airport is just a gorgeous location with the closest to mountains that we really have in Wisconsin, but just absolutely gorgeous.
Large hills.
Yes, large hills. The Johnson Brothers Restoration Shop was there, and we got to see Piper Vagabond serial number 1 and the unique history with that. Some good breakfast at Sam's Diner. And we went into town for Arthur's Supper Club one night and also got some ice cream for dinner one night, too. And then, of course, Rich cooked us all lunch one day. So
He did. That was really
What do
fun.
you make?
yeah.
3 different varieties of teriyaki. So beef teriyaki, chicken, and tofu, depending on what your tastes were. So
I'm hungry.
And Badger did some cooking. He did some slicing and dicing and some stir frying in the wok. So
Nice.
That was cool. And it was interesting, too, to see how he makes his videos, because he also made a video of the cooking experience, getting B-roll and different angles, things like that. So that was kind of fun to watch his process.
Cool.
The other part that I nerded out on a little bit is, as I did my research about the airport, because I was just curious a little bit more about Lone Rock, it is the midway point between Chicago and Minneapolis in the old airmail routes back 100 years ago, right? So I then took the nerdery to another level, and I did research on what all the different waypoints were, because they did the contact flying back in those days of, point to point to point to point, like these different waypoints and beacons like 10 miles apart, right? So I got as many of the GPS coordinates as I could find on the internet, and I basically flew the route.
That's so cool.
From St. Paul to Lone Rock. What I didn't do is fly it at 30 to 50 feet. I decided that 2,500 was probably more acceptable.
I'm sure today's FAA is much happier with that decision.
Yeah.
30 to 50.
I mean, I could have gone down a little further. It was really hazy, too. So, I mean, the 2,500 was a pretty comfortable place. That was pretty fun.
That sounds like fun. It's like you didn't get enough by driving the Fisk Arrival, huh?
No, and I think so. Admittedly, I recorded some of it. I don't know what or when I'm going to do something with that video, but I remember talking to myself as I was flying and be like, it is just fascinating how far in 100 years of aviation, I mean, obviously aviation has been around a little bit longer than that, but 100 years since these mail routes started, like I'm flying these same routes with GPS coordinates of where these waypoints were at, and they were flying at point to point to point to point, following these beacons and cement arrows.
And that's all they had.
Yeah. No fancy radios or instrumentation. That's all they had. And it was just, I was kind of fascinated by it. So I really enjoyed the history aspect of it. So I was able to take 2 levels of nerdery and combine them into like like our powers combined. I am Captain Nerd. So
you're in a welcome place for that. We appreciate that kind of nerdery here on the Flying Midwest podcast.
And we got to connect with Rose again from the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame. So that was really nice to see her again.
So for Rose and everybody else who came this weekend, thank you so much for coming. It was great to see you guys all there. And we look forward to hopefully doing this again next year.
Yeah. One more person I need to personally recognize. Juliet Echo Foxtrot. That dude, our Cheese Curd Taco Czar / Opposing Bases live show director / just all-around good dude. He will just drop everything for anyone. He's a really great guy. And I just want to say thanks for all of your efforts as well, sir, for helping to move stuff around and for helping during the cooking portions. Just everything that you did to help make this event successful was really great. So thank you, sir.
And thanks for driving me, because my plane is still in annual.
Right.
I don't want to leave someone out of the fly-in. There were so many great people there, and I'm afraid I'm going to miss somebody. But thank you, everyone, for coming out. And we also have a new patron who is at the fly-in. Flying Cinder joins us at the monitoring CTAF level. So anyone else out there who's interested in joining the Patreon, getting some exclusive content, and you can view a wrap-up of our flying event as well as some other blog materials, hit us up over on Patreon. That link will be in the show notes. All right, so we talked about Rose a moment ago, but she's also the featured guest on this episode.
Yep, Rose and Dan Silvers from the Waunakee Airport got together with us to talk about something we've talked about a few times on the show, the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame's project to make public and ultimately digitize the Leo Kohn photography collection.
Yeah, there is a lot of information that they covered, and it's a really cool collection. So that'll be exciting to talk about here in a few minutes.
So before we get to the interview with Rose, which is very exciting, it was very fun, we have to cover our sectional showdown, sponsored by Pilot Quarters.
We sure do. And the last one was from Badger. So do you want to lead the way with this one, sir?
Yeah, so this one, if you guys remember, was actually brought to us by the one and only Martin Pauly. And I did a little more research on it, and I found the airport identifier. So everybody pull up your favorite EFB or whatever to Sierra Tango Juliet, the Rosecrans Memorial Airport in St. Joseph, Missouri.
He said in his best teacher voice. Everyone take out your workbooks.
Yep. And as a reminder, this is a dashed line that goes across a taxiway. And Jim, you had thought this was an ILS hold short point, and there were quite a few other comments echoing that sentiment, even though I said in the episode that is wrong. And Maddie, remind me, yours had something to do with blast pads, wasn't it? Or?
Oh, I made something up. Something of that nature, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go to the comments. Like I said, a lot of people were thinking it was an ILS hold point, and truthfully, the ILS hold point on a different spot of the map, or the diagram, kind of threw some people off. But Nitropolitan says that's where UND student pilots log 5 landings. Ed from the Flying Stampede said that if you fold the taxi diagram along the dotted lines, it makes an origami airplane.
I love that answer. That was so good.
Oh, Ed, never change.
Our friend Jeff, better known as Juliet Echo Foxtrot, our cheese curd taco czar.
That's him.
This is a lengthy one. Hold your breath. This is the blast pad hold short line. They need a bigger safety area for the surface-to-air missiles that launch out of the blast pad. This airport is a test site for the FAA's new, quote, Bravo Buster missiles that lock onto aircrafts that don't have a clearance into the Bravo. You've all been warned.
1 November Romeo, we're looking at you.
Right.
I'm already inside.
Well, Clarion then.
No!
Get this, guys. Martin Pauly chimed in on this one.
Oh, did he really?
He did.
Yeah, but he just said, I'm guessing I shouldn't chime in here, right?
Oh, bless him.
Because, of course, he would know the right answer. And the right answer is that it is a runway approach hold line. So if you look at the diagram, it's got kind of a diagonal, and it has you hold short of that diagonal runway threshold so that you're not just underneath a landing plane. So traditionally, when you think of your taxiway, it goes right up to the runway.
Yeah.
Because of the layout of these runways, it's way further back, so they actually indicate it on the diagram as the runway approach hold position.
Okay. Gotcha.
So thank you, Martin Pauly, for giving us that awesome piece of trivia for the Pilot Quarters Sectional Showdown. You can find them on pilotquarters.com.
Before we continue with this episode, a quick word from those who make the podcast possible. As pilots, we know all about the challenges of battling grease, grime, and other junk that can accumulate on our aircraft, especially on the underside. That's where Release comes in. It's tough on grease and grime, making the cleaning process as easy as spray, wait, and wipe. I've used it on my plane and it tackled those stubborn spots and grease marks with ease. And let's not forget about those bugs we tend to smash with our GA aircraft. With Release, those stuck-on bugs don't stand a chance. And remove them effortlessly, saving me time and elbow grease. What's even better is Release is non-corrosive, non-abrasive, and free of harsh chemicals, so it's safe to use in a variety of aircraft materials. But it's not just for your aircraft. Release is also great for home, cars, boats, and RVs. It's a versatile cleaner that gets the job done wherever you need it. My favorite of their products is their concentrate, so you can make batch after batch to continue keeping your aircraft clean. Check out their full lineup today at releasecleaner.com. Hey there, aviation friends. Let me tell you about my friends over Pilot Quarters. Yes, summer might be coming to a close, but it's not too late to still get your next favorite flying shirt. I know my Pilot Quarters shirt got a lot of attention at Airventure, and people asking tons of questions about where I got that great shirt. The guys have a wide variety of chart-inspired designs by state or by region. And these designs go beyond just putting a chart on a shirt. From subtle to bold, these eye-catching designs will be sure to be the talk of your next aviation event. Go check the guys out and order your next shirt today at pilotquarters.com and soar in style. We are entering the peak of summer flying season, and that means it's time to upgrade your eyewear with Flying Eyes. These aviation-inspired sunglasses feature a sleek, durable, and impact-resistant design. Their gradient lenses are perfect for pilots, providing maximum ease in reading your instrument panel. Say goodbye to those headache-inducing gas station sunglasses that fit poorly with your headset. Flying Eyes is designed by pilots for pilots to ensure superior comfort. Enter code FlyingMidwest10 for 10% off your next purchase at Flying Eyes. All right. Well, thanks everyone for the great answers on the sectional showdown. You guys ready to get into this interview?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
So this is another great interview from our time out at Airventure this year. So without further ado, let's welcome Rose and Dan to the Flying Midwest Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to a very special edition of the Flying Midwest Podcast. We are recording live at the EAA Museum during Airventure, and we have a very special treat today. We have, from the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame, we have Miss Rose Dorsey, who is, are you still the president?
No, I am no longer the president. I was president for 12 years, and then I stepped away a number of years ago. And about a year and a half ago, I came back to the organization. They asked if I would take over the magazine again that I had started a number of years ago. So I got back into it, and now I do the magazine, and I do the membership, and I'm involved in some fundraising. And so they're keeping me very busy, and I love every minute of it.
Just when you get out, they suck you back in.
That's
Excellent.
a good thing. Yeah.
And also with us is Dan Silvers, who's the manager of the Waunakee Airport and part of the project that we're going to be talking about as well. So, Dan, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I help run the Waunakee Airport. I do all the mowing and spray weeds and move snow around and that kind of thing, and it's a lot of fun. I write software for my day job, but then I also got involved with the Hall of Fame, and they needed a website, so we built a website, and then someone said, hey, we got this photo collection, and then I got sucked into that, so.
In a good way, right?
Yeah. It's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So the photo collection is what we're here to talk about today, but we do have a tradition on this podcast that we open up every episode with what we call the Fast Five, and I'll let Jim take over for that.
All right. Are you two ready?
No.
All right. Well, too bad. Question number one. Favorite plane that you've seen at Airventure?
Honda Jet.
Okay.
I have a soft spot for Helio Couriers.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're celebrating an anniversary this year.
I know.
Is it 70th?
Sounds about right.
Okay.
All right. Question number two. Best kept secret of Airventure?
Parking at the North Tees and taking the bus around because you can avoid a lot of the traffic. However, you need the special code to get in. So, but for me, that's a big deal. So I live on the north side of Oshkosh.
Okay.
So I drive through town. I park at the North Tees over by the fire station, and it's the best part for me.
Nice.
If you fly in after a thunderstorm rolls through, there's nobody else flying, and you don't have to deal with anybody else getting in your way coming in here. That's how we came in last 5 years ago or something, which was really nice.
It's a great segue to question number three. Worst weather you've experienced at Airventure?
Well, I was here for, I can't say it, Sloshkosh, and that was crazy. And my husband was the ops manager here at Whitman at the time.
Okay.
So I saw some amazing, fish on the runway and okay, I'm exaggerating, but that was really bad. And everybody knows about Sloshkosh, but to see it firsthand out on the grounds, it was really something.
I bet.
I think that was probably I think I was there that year too. It has to be, yeah.
You know what? Can I add something though?
Yeah.
I think it was last year. Chris Palmer called us about 9 o'clock or 9:30 from Angle of Attack. He called us and he said, "Hey, there's bad thunderstorms coming up. Can I come and stay at your house for a while?" And so they went down to Menards, and they bought bubble wrap, and they bought cardboard, and they're wrapping the airplane with everything they could to protect it. And about 45 minutes later, he shows up at our house, and he comes to the front door, and another person comes, and another person comes. and it was like a clown car. There must have been a dozen people came with him, but they were, some of the people were terrified because they were from Alaska, and they did not experience thunderstorms with tornado warnings. There were tornadoes just west of us in Amro that evening. So that was pretty crazy. And I think about half the people camped out on the living room floor, and the rest of them went back and checked on the airplane. But I can't remember. It might have been. It was either last year or the year before.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Question number 4. Favorite food or beverage on the grounds?
You're kidding, right? It's the cheese curd tacos. See?
That's a great answer.
And yes, and last time was the first time I tried it, and I decided I'm going to, risk having a heart attack and have one every year because they're amazing.
I usually go for a rip your float. It's pretty. The weather's pretty cool this year compared to other years. So
Yeah.
but
I'm not going to complain about that. But
yeah.
All right, final question. If you could meet anyone in aviation, dead or alive, who would it be?
Amelia Earhart, easily.
I mean, we're working on this photo project, so is that a good segue into Leo?
Ooh,
Yeah, we got a lot of questions, so yeah, probably Leo.
Probably Leo. All right. Well, thank you so much for playing along with the Fast 5 questions. We're going to jump into the meat and potatoes of our interview.
So could you tell us a little bit about the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame?
The organization started in 1985 with a gentleman named Carl Gale, Guell. He worked for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation and the Bureau of Aeronautics, and he wanted to collect all the aviation history of Wisconsin. And he did that by traveling throughout the state, and he took a tape recorder. He must have been a lot like Leo Kohn, because he would take the tape recorder and then he would come home and he'd transcribe all his notes of all these early Wisconsin aviators. And once he did that for a couple of years, and we still have some of those transcriptions, so it's really cool to look those over. But then at that point, he decided to organize the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame. And in 1986, we had our first inductions, and Paul Pomeresny was one of the very first inductees. And the mission that they created and that we still abide by now is to collect, preserve, and share Wisconsin aviation history. And then a few years ago, we added the scholarship program. So we added to the mission statement the promoting aviation education. And I think this year we're giving out 6 scholarships to aviation students. So
That's
we're
awesome.
really,
Excellent.
yeah, it started, I think, in 2002 with 1 scholarship, and we're growing every year. So we're really excited about that. So that's a little bit about the Hall of Fame. And I just want to mention also that our 2024 inductees are, one of them is somebody that you guys know, Caroline Blaze Jensen.
Oh, no kidding.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Good for her.
because you guys did a podcast with her, as I
did.
recall.
Sure did.
Yeah. And so she's being inducted this year, and along with 4 others. And that induction ceremony is right here at the EAA Aviation Museum in the Eagle Hangar, and that'll be on October 26th.
Oh.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about the Leo Kohn photo collection. Before we get too deep into the photos themselves and the restoration process and digitization, who was Leo Kohn, and why was he so important to the history of aviation, especially here in Wisconsin?
So Leo was one of the founding members. He was in the room and signed the book. He's member number 4. He was the first EA employee, so he served as the official photographer, executive assistant. He was one of the early editors for Sport Aviation all the way up until I believe it was early 70s when he left to go start his own photography business. But that's kind of how Leo got involved with EAA, and it was just he was there from the beginning pretty much.
Did he ever learn how to fly?
Yeah, he did. He flew a J3 Cub. He soloed that, and then eventually got his pilot's license. That was shortly after World War II. Flew like a Cessna 120. I think he got a seaplane rating, and at some point ground looped an airplane, and that's when his girlfriend at the time, Mary, said, "You're not flying anymore. Sorry."
Enough is enough.
But he couldn't kick his love of airplanes, and ended up he has the photography bug, so he just ended up taking tons and tons of photos of airplanes, and that's kind of his claim to fame, I guess.
So could you tell us a little bit about how you came across this photo collection and why is it so unique and so special?
Sure. So Leo passed away in 2014, and the photo collection ended up getting gifted to the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And it sat for a number of years. I got involved with the organization about 2 years ago, and at some point, somebody mentioned, hey, we have this photo collection, and here's a picture of these cabinets. I'm like, okay, big deal, whatever. And then they sent a picture of the envelopes, and that's when you kind of get an idea of the scale and size and detail that went into this collection. Every single envelope has individual number. It describes the airplane, the type, who made it, the date, where it's located, all kinds of information about the airplane. There's over 30,000 of these negatives in these cabinets. So that kind of gives you a size of the scale, and it also shows you why this is not your normal photo collection. It's just, you open these cabinets and you kind of get blown away by it. You get lost in them. Like there's photos going back to the golden age of air racing and serial number 1 airplanes, prototypes, all kinds of stuff. Everything is in there. Airliners, general aviation, seaplanes, military, everything's in there.
Wow.
And having just watched that forum that you guys put on, I don't know that, we can say 30,000 photos, right? And we could talk about looking in cabinets and then you find it, but I don't know that having, again, watched the forum, if I hadn't seen those photos myself of what these filing cabinets look like, just full of meticulous records, I don't know that I would have completely understood the full scale of it. And it was impressive to see just how detailed he was on those cards.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible, and that's the special sauce of this collection is. The long-term plan for this is we're raising funds to digitize the whole collection, and that gets put online, and all that metadata on those envelopes, we're reading those using text recognition, and then those will go in a database, and you can search for whatever kind of airplane you're looking for, what kind of engine, dates, locations, you name it, whatever's on the card, we're going to make it searchable.
Wow. That's going to be a huge undertaking.
Yeah, it is.
And one of the other things I thought was interesting during the presentation, we're talking about these filing cabinets and over 30,000, and a lot of people, they hear negatives, they think 35 millimeter film, but we're not talking about that, are we?
Right, yeah, and that's the other thing that makes this collection kind of unique is Leo shot using Kodak 616 format film, which it's similar to 120 size film, but it's a little bigger. So the negatives themselves are 4 1/4 inches by 2.5. So that's about, if you have 3 35 millimeter photos, that's the width. So the detail you can pull out of these photos is just, it's astounding. Like these are already really good images, but then you get these massive negatives, and there's the detail's incredible.
Being able to read the data plate from a photo that was taken in the late 1940s.
Yeah.
It's amazing, yeah.
That is really cool.
So another question I have about the collection itself, coming from a bit of a photography background, obviously these days we have the ability to take thousands of images in a day if we really wanted to, if you really get crazy with the shutters. But it wasn't like that for him. It's film, and you get what you get.
Yeah, so Leo would go to these air shows, and he'd be carrying around multiple cameras preloaded with film, and that's one of the drawbacks from using 616 film is the camera usually only holds 8 photos, and if you have the old format, it's 6. But they made the spools a little bit tighter, so you could get another 2 images on them. But you only got 8 photos before you needed to reload the camera, and that's crazy. So when you think like there's 30,000 images, that's a lot of rolls of film.
Yeah.
About how long of a time span did it take, like from his first photo to the last one that you have?
So he started, I think we have a lot of late 40s. The really early stuff is the Cleveland Air Races, I think in 47.
Okay.
And it goes through the 60s, and I think there's some stuff from the early 70s. He was also, the other thing is, there's a kind of another part to this collection. He traded and sold negatives with other aviation photographers. So a huge chunk of the collection, the photos are not actually taken by him.
Oh, interesting.
So we have photos from I made a list at one point, and there was like 20 different photographer names just in the chunk I had been working on.
So what goes into the restoring and digitization of these before you display the photos?
Good question. Okay, so this has been kind of a process we've evolved over. I think it was less than a year ago we kind of embarked on this. Well, we kind of have it down to a science. So we have it all starts, we have a light table that the negative will sit on, and that projects light upwards through the negative. The negative also has the emulsive layer on the top, so when you set it down, the image is actually kind of reversed. And then that all sits on top of a copy stand, which has a large mirrorless Sony camera. It's a 42 megapixel camera right now with a big macro lens. So that's kind of the rig that takes the negative, and then that connects to a computer, and we have some custom software that we built to capture all this together. The second piece is we have a document scanner for the envelope. So the current version and the best version we've had so far of the software we built is you place the negative, you insert the envelope in the document scanner, and it's actually automatically feeds it in and then captures the image all at once together, and it takes under 10 seconds to do that. That's really the process we have right now. There's nothing else really involved, but there's a little bit of cleaning. We've got to dust off. We have tools for dusting off the negatives. Usually they've been stored pretty well, so there's not a lot required. But that's a pretty simple process. And then that gives us a database with the digitized image, the envelope, and it also will read the text on both of those images and put that in the database too. So we have a record of everything. It's all kept together.
So with the actual process that you guys use, was that literally just trial and error? Did you have outside help? How did you come across that?
So Scott Green, who is a Hall of Fame board member, he got me roped into this. He's a photographer by trade, so he has. Okay. We've actually kind of have the camera we're using is on loan from him.
Okay.
So he had a light table we borrowed originally. It was 20 years old and fluorescent. We replaced that with a more modern LED one. So it was kind of trial and error. We've also digitizing the envelopes was kind of a process to figure out, because we started with a little like classroom document image thing, which was just a camera that points down, and it kind of worked. But the problem with the envelopes is they're not flat. They're not flat. So you take a picture and they're kind of crumpled, and then if you light them up, there's pencil on some of these. So if you light it up, the pencil is reflective, and then that just gets wiped out. So we tried a bigger camera. Like we had a second Sony mirrorless camera, and that worked okay. It worked a little better, but we still had kind of the same problems where things weren't flat, things were reflecting. And then we started playing around with document scanners, and those they've been great. Like we bought a really nice one that's really gentle on the envelopes, and you just stick it in and it sucks it through, and you get both. You can actually do both sides if there's writing on both sides of the envelope. And our custom software integrates right with it, so it can kick off. Like it's a totally hands-free process.
So then throughout all this process, you were able to build a display at the Kelch Aviation Museum in Brodhead, at the Brodhead Airport in Wisconsin. When I think of historical Wisconsin aviation stuff, usually I think of EAA and Oshkosh. And obviously I knew about the Kelch Museum too, but what made you guys decide to display this there rather than here in Oshkosh?
It was an opportunity that was presented to us. Pat Whedon, the museum director, along with the creative director, Ami, who I think you guys know, reached out to the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame and asked if we would be interested in having an exhibit in the new atrium that they had just opened recently. And so we talked about it within the board and within the Leo Kohn committee that we have, and we said, well, if they're asking if we want to put an exhibit up, what should be the subject? And of course, it had to be the Leo Kohn project, because we were just getting started with it and getting started with the fundraising and getting the word out about it. So it just made sense to take them up on the offer, and so we unveiled the new exhibit at the Kelch Aviation Museum on June 9th, and we had a great crowd. People seemed pretty excited about it. The exhibit mimics the, it's a reproduction, I guess, of Leo's basement darkrooms, and we have a very similar World War II surplus desk like he used, and so it was a great collaboration of about about 5 or 6 of us who put it all together, and we had help by Leo's son and daughter, Bill Kohn and Mary Ellen Kohn. Sometimes questions came up about different things, and so we could always reach out to them, and it turned out to be a great place for us, and we're really excited about it. And I will say, though, if another museum were to offer, we may be interested. So just throwing that out there.
Hint.
Yeah. Right, there you go.
I mean, with 30,000 photos, got plenty to go around.
There's a lot yet, and Dan mentioned it in the presentation that he did earlier. Is there's just, we know there's at least 30,000 negatives, probably many more than that, and we've only barely touched the surface. And Dan thinks he may have scanned 1,000, and everything that we've seen has been spectacular. And when you think about all the information, all the photographs, and you think about the kind of camera that he was using, you said about digital, or even using your phones now, and you'll take, or I will anyway. I'm looking at one airplane and I'll take 600 pictures to get that one perfect one. But he had those rolls of film, so he had to get it right from the start. Yeah. And when you look through the viewfinder of this 616, we have an example of it here. We have his actual camera at the museum, but it's not easy to even just look at the view through the viewfinder and get that subject perfectly arranged. So he knew his stuff, no doubt about it.
The follow-up question I have to that is, so with a display like this, how do you select what you even put into a museum like that with so much content to work from?
Yeah, we had some fun with that.
And I was actually going to ask a similar question, if you can talk about what you did decide to put in, because you've mentioned some cool artifacts as well.
Yeah. How did we do this? I think I already kind of had we have been doing these presentations for a little bit, so I kind of had a kind of a framework already for the presentations and a list of favorite photos, and we just kept scanning more and more, or digitizing more and more. So I think I threw maybe 100 photos in a folder. And then we put those on a spreadsheet, and I think 4 or 5 of us just went through and kind of said, these are my favorite, and then we kind of tallied it up, and somehow we whittled it down to 5 for the main ones. Yeah. But then there's like 30 or 40 other ones on display that are printed out for the exhibit. Additionally, there's also a TV screen out there with I think we have 178 photos, I think is what it is. And they're cycling through every 20 minutes at the museum, or every 20 seconds there's a new photo. So that means you can stand there for almost an hour and not see a repeat. on this TV screen.
That's incredible.
So, but somehow we whittled it down, and someone made an executive decision and said, I'm printing these 5 photos, and then made them face the right way, because that was another consideration.
I think it was at we were down to the last photo, and you said, okay, just so you know, I have to leave in about 5 minutes. And we said, okay, it's that one. And it turned out it was the helicopter. And it because there was a helicopter. Swampcopter? The swampcopter that we call it. And I was opposed to it at first, but the more I looked at it, the more I thought it would look pretty cool. And these photos, these printed photos that are in the exhibit are about, 3 feet by 4 feet, or about, they're large size. Yes. And then when you see this big, what we call the swamp helicopter in the large size, it makes a difference as opposed to seeing it on your computer screen. So we had a lot of fun with that. But at some point we just had to shut it off and say, these are the 5.
And then there's also fun things to look at, like the people and the fashion and hairstyles and that kind of thing too.
I didn't think about that.
One of the best things in these photos is the backgrounds and the people that are moving around and all kinds of stuff. So when you're looking at these photos, make sure you look in the backgrounds.
There's something so special about having all of this information. Like, yeah, you have the serial numbers of the aircraft and stuff like that, but you also have, like what you said, the fashion and stuff. So much of that little history has been because of those little things that people preserve, even if it's totally unrelated, which I think is really awesome.
That's one of the things that I really love about the collection is seeing, especially the fashion part of it. I just noticed today in one of the photos, the lady is wearing bobby socks and saddle shoes. And then when you see the women in the background, they're all out at the airport wearing their plaid dresses with their cinched waists and looking spectacular. And so that's really neat. And the men as well. They're wearing the trench coats and hats. And one guy looks a little suspicious out there on the ramp. So
Better call the FAA.
He somehow got through TSA. I don't know. But yeah, I mean the aircraft photos are really cool. But then when you put them in context of the era. And seeing that's really neat, or even the signage that's at the airports, especially like the Curtiss Wright Airport. There were some old logos. There's a Gettleman Brewing Company. There's an airplane that has I think it's $1,000 beer for the Gettleman Brewing Company, which was eventually sold to Miller, I think. And yeah, very cool.
One of the things I was curious about, too, is you have more than just photographs. You have some unique artifacts in there, like a camera bag and certain credential cards. Can you give a little bit of background of what people might see if they go to the museum?
That he used. We have his actual Kodak 616 camera, the family gifted to us. Oh. He had ramp passes. One of them was signed by Paul Poveresny, so
nice.
So granting him permission to go on the ramp and take the photos. And Dan's, we have one of his dryers that he used in his darkroom, so he would print the photos and then he'd put them on the dryer. And his logbook and pilot certificates are there. So cool. Yeah. So after he left EAA, he started his own magazine called Armchair Aviator, and he did that for about 2 years, and it was filled with amazing photographs, as you might expect,
yeah.
But even more details about the aircraft that were in the magazine. So
that's awesome.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm. So, do each of you have a favorite photo that stands out?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's probably this one, which is it's Grace Harris, and she's one of the pilots. I think that was 1947 air races, and 49 was 1949. I don't have the card in front of me, but she's sitting on her wing. I don't know if this is before or after the race, but apparently she won first place in her race. But there's a toolbox on the ground. I don't know if something broke. She also, I noticed this recently. She's smoking a cigarette too.
Yeah.
I don't know if we zoom in, you can kind of see between her fingers. I think there's a cigarette there.
Oh, no kidding.
So, but she's looking right at Leo, right at the camera. So I don't know what the story is, but it's kind of this just crazy photograph with her staring at the camera. This gorgeous T6 in the background that she's sitting on.
Rose, do you have a favorite photo?
Well, that used to be my favorite one, but now that Dan covered that one,
you can share that. Okay.
No. I was really excited to see the Whitman special taken right here at Oshkosh, and I don't recall what year it was, but there's a picture of Bill Brennan in one of the racers, the Whitman special, and so living here in Oshkosh and knowing his history, and there he is. Dan just pulled up the photo, and actually there were several that were taken right there, so that was fun to see. I'm not sure if it's my absolute favorite, but I love it for the local history here.
Oh, that's very cool.
And we should probably say a lot of the photos were taken in the Milwaukee area because, of course, that's where he lived.
Oh, sure.
But we have found some at other airports. They did trips to Canada, so they took pictures while they were there. He must have went through Minocqua at one point because there's a photo of an airplane that says Minocqua Airways on it, which is pretty interesting. And of course, here are these at Oshkosh. And what's really neat about this is our organization does a quarterly magazine, and when we see photos like this, we start looking up the history and why was that airplane here, or what was it doing there, or what's the background, and so we think in the future our magazine's going to have a lot more stories from the earlier days of aviation in Wisconsin, because we've got the great photos to go with them. So
I do want to mention a story that was brought up during the presentation earlier today, and it's not any of our favorite photos, I'm sure, sitting around this table and talking, but there was somebody who saw a photo of a plane from the Cleveland Air Races, and I don't remember if it was one of Leo's photos or one that he traded. I see you nodding your head. It's one of his.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And the story that he told, so the plane ended up crashing, and there was a red sticker on the data plate. Well, at the end of the presentation, maybe one of you guys wants to talk about that gentleman that stood up and told how meaningful that photo was for him.
Yeah, well, it was his father was living in Cleveland at the time, and that airplane crashed, and that crash actually ended the air races in Cleveland due to that. But we have several pictures of the airplane. And I think one of them, it's getting worked on, and the one that I showed off in the presentation, they're getting it pulled by a tractor with some advertising on the tractor, and it's a unique looking airplane because it has musical notes painted down the side of the fuselage, and it's actually the actual notes from "Begin the Begin," which is a song by Cole Porter. The other unique feature of that airplane is it looks like it has what we would think are tip tanks, but they're actually it's an oil cooler.
Okay.
So they ran oil lines all the way out to the wing and then back to illuminate this scoop that I think it's the P-51s have, so it can go a little bit faster. But yeah, it was kind of interesting to see the guy stand up and say, "Yeah, I know that plane, and that plane has some history." So we have negatives of that plane.
That's very cool.
That is really cool. And he had actually said too, he had always wondered what that plane actually looked like, and so this collection and being able to see it today almost seemed to give him a little bit of closure on that story. And I'm really curious to see how in the future some more stories like this might come to light.
And you're ready. I think you've already talked to a few people who were able to share information, and that's what we're really hoping for once we get the photos online, is that we find those stories and maybe the son or daughter or granddaughter or whatever will say, yeah, that was my dad flying that, or that was my mom flying that, sure. And they'll share those additional stories. So.
Well, we have one more.
Yeah.
So how can people find you? And you mentioned that this is a big undertaking. It's going to be expensive. How can people donate and help out this project?
So, well, of course, we would, we'll open our hands right now. And you can just hand us your $100 bills. But I'm kidding, of course. We have a website that's dedicated to the or a web page, I guess I should say, that's dedicated to the Kohn project. And so it's wahf.org/Kohn, Kohn. And you can donate there. You can also send checks to the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame. I'm not going to put the address on it right now, but we do appreciate donations to the project. We're about a third, maybe I guess about halfway there. We've got a little ways to go yet. But it's such an important project, and it's because of all those details that I don't know if you use the word rivet level details, but it certainly is. You zoom in, and you can look along the fuselage, and you can see how many rivets they put in, and so that it's the details and being able to look at those, and we want people to be able to see those details. And maybe you're an aircraft restorer, or maybe you're a historian, but people are going to want to take a look at these photos, and that's what we want to do is get it out there, and that's what Leo wanted to do. He had a conversation with his son shortly before he passed away, and he said, I don't. I guess I'm paraphrasing, but he didn't want it to go into a junk heap. He wanted to make sure that they were preserved and made available to the public, and that's why. And we really feel like it's almost like a spiritual thing. Like we've gotten to know Leo very well through this project, and we really want to honor him and respect his wishes, and so that's what we're doing. Why we're doing what we're doing. So thanks for asking that question. It's an important one. So.
And we'll make sure that we put all that information in our show notes too. Mm-hmm. So if anyone is interested in checking out how they can help or donate, just check out the show notes, and that information will be there as far as the address and the webpage.
Very good. I think he'd be thrilled with this.
Thanks, yeah.
Well, I think it's about that time.
I think it is about that. So what is your aviation unpopular opinion?
I don't know if it's really an unpopular opinion, but I don't like when people don't fly patterns.
Like proper patterns, or patterns at all?
Like, yeah, like I have Wanakee, this little airport, and people come in and do straight in approaches all the time. I'd like coming in, making sure we have people with no radios too, come flying there. You want to see the runway. You want to make sure there's nobody on the runway, because we got people walking around our runway sometimes. Oh. So I like to come in and make sure I fly pattern. It doesn't matter where I go. The only exception is if you're flying an instrument approach, but otherwise I'm always flying a pattern, and that's my controversial opinion. I don't know if it's really controversial. That's a pet peeve, I guess.
We can. Hot takes, pet peeves, whatever you got.
The hot takes are welcome.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, I guess mine's more of a pet peeve. And this is because I like to write. I like to edit the magazine. I'm not pointing fingers at you, Dan, because you did that. I know, and it's actually kind of silly, but it drives me nuts when people mispronounce words or misspell words. No, it's about Poveresny. So you mispronounced it once. But there you go. But but that's just the way I've always been. I like seeing words spelled correctly and pronounced correctly. Not that I don't make mistakes too, though. So
you and Maddie, we get along really well.
Yeah.
Maddie will correct my show notes that no one else but us sees.
Yes, because it drives me nuts. Well, he spelled stabilizers with like 3 A's yesterday, and I'm like, I need to change this. There was no internet, so I couldn't.
You get me.
That brings up a good point, Dan. For those searching for the Broadhead Airport for the Couch Aviation Museum, it's BRODHEAD. It's not spelled like the Arrowhead Broadhead. It's.
Can I blame autocorrect on that one? Probably. Yeah.
That darn voice to text.
It's really not pick on Dan Day.
Well, every day is. So it doesn't matter.
We have an interview later today with Ryan Dombrowski from Super Aero, and I was spelling his name with a W in it the whole time and didn't realize that was wrong until yesterday. And I'm sure that will come up later tonight.
It might.
So.
It's hard to say.
That will be his pet peeve.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for the last hour or so to talk about the collection and how it came to be and where you guys are planning on taking it in the future. I think it's been really interesting, and I think it's a great piece of aviation history that you're trying to restore and make sure it's there for the ages.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you having us on, and hopefully we can come back again another time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much to Rose and Dan for coming on to the Flying Midwest podcast and telling us about the awesome project that they're doing with the Leo Kohn exhibit. And I don't know about you guys, but I kind of want to get down sooner than later to the Kelch Aviation Museum at Broadhead and check this stuff out in person.
Yeah, knowing that they have, a couple hundred done, and even that's been a feat, and there's thousands and thousands to go.
Yeah.
It's just insane. And it's awesome that they're doing this work.
Yeah, just the meticulous detail is really impressive, too. Like, to how much Leo put into those photographs right at the outset is just, it's inspiring. As someone who's really into photography myself, just the dedication to his craft was really cool to hear about.
Yeah, and the pictures were absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm definition of like amateur photographer as far as like I can take pictures. I have a decent eye, but like you start talking to me about aperture and stuff and I lose you a little bit. But like even my relatively untrained eye, like I can see all the attention to detail and the meticulous staging and everything. And not necessarily like he was putting up lights or anything like modern photographers do. He saw a thing, he got the shot that he wanted or multiple shots that he wanted. And it was so cool.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that really rang true with me, too, especially when we were at the fly-in last weekend and I was trying to get a picture of the Vagabond and just the patience of getting a shot with nobody in the picture.
Right.
But then for me to be able to look at what I took and be like, oh, somebody's got their elbow in the picture and I can retake it. He didn't have that.
Right.
So just incredible the dedication that he put into his photography.
And just the sheer amount of information of stuff that most people wouldn't even bat an eye about. Like, yeah, the first of this type of airplane or this really unusual airplane. But no, it's just like some guy's 170. All about it.
Right.
It's like, it's awesome. That's the kind of history that we need, that needs to be preserved because there's so much we don't know just in general. And I'm not going to wax on poetically about this, but I could. I'm not going to. But I think it's absolutely fabulous that his wishes are being honored and his work is going and being preserved and going to show people of generations all of his stuff. All the stuff that he saw. It's so cool.
Well, thank you again to Dan and Rose for being part of our podcast and sharing all that with us.
Yep. And as a reminder, Rose mentioned it. We'll mention it one more time. For more information, you can go to Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame's website at wahf.org and learn more and donate as well. And we'll put a link in the show notes.
So that was super duper fun. Obviously, it was amazing to hear all about that. But what do we have in store for next episode?
Well, next episode, we're going to take a little bit more of a lighter side of Airventure. It's going to be a standalone interview with Ryan Dombrowski, who we've had on before from Super Aero Live, but he is also the voice of EAA Radio out on Boeing Plaza throughout the course of the week, doing a ton of great interviews with all kinds of different pilots, aviators, and aviation enthusiasts, not just for EAA Radio, but for the masses who are on Boeing Plaza to hear his sweet, silky voice and come and learn about some airplanes. So we sat down with Ryan with a surprise guest that we won't really spoil just yet to talk about all things Airventure with him.
I'm really curious. Have you touched the episode yet?
I've not.
I can't imagine how much of a disaster
it's going to be
to edit.
It's going to be so fun, though.
Oh, you're going to be laughing the whole time, but it's going to be awful to edit.
Yeah, this banter may stay in the episode for right now, too. So
yeah.
Good.
Deborah, we love you, but man, I'm going to have my workout out for me. That was a good time.
Well, until then, a friendly reminder to check us out on Patreon and support us if you like our content. And join us on our Discord server. You can send us an email or a message on any of the social medias and join our awesome aviation community.
To be fair, if you're listening this far, you're not a fan. So
so get in here.
As I saw on a TikTok today, put your hand in your heart and raise your hand and say 3 times, I am a fan. Anyway, so air show season is kind of coming to an end. It's still going on here in the South United States. However, you can still get really cool merch. You should definitely get some. Also, we have some wintry type merch that you can purchase because soon, not right now, but soon it will be cooler. And you'll be like, man, I really want a sweatshirt with my favorite podcast on it. Your dreams can come true for the low price of supporting us.
Jeff once again showed up wearing Opposing Bases shirts. He had Opposing Bases magnets all over his truck.
It was awesome.
Jeff, the frick?
Did we take pictures of that? We should have taken pictures. I don't think we did.
I took a picture of, you know how they could put the thing on the propeller for like walk around and do not touch and judge your plane. He filled one out and had it on his truck so that people could judge his truck. I did take a picture of that. We'll put it on the social medias so people can see it. There's no like proprietary or personal information I don't think that he wouldn't want to see out there. So
just his address, his phone number, his social security number, his the street he grew up on, all that stuff.
Mother's maiden name.
Yeah, I love that one too. So speaking of our social medias, if you don't know where to follow us, all that'll be down in the show notes, or you can reach us at flyingmidwest.com or our email, flyingmidwestpodcast@gmail.com.
Let's be honest though, all of the answers to Jeff's security questions are going to be Opposing Bases.
They are.
What was the name of your first pet?
Opposing Bases.
Romeo Golf.
Yep.
Great. Well, we do want to thank all of you wonderful listeners for tuning in to this episode of the Flying Midwest Podcast. We appreciate you being here. And until next time,
see ya.
See ya. See ya.
Jet 536, contact Minneapolis Center 132.35. Good day.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Flying Midwest Podcast. Until next time, podcast service terminated, squawk VFR, frequency change approved. Good day.